Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'm going to review the film Hoppers, and in the second half, I'm going over my top 5 worst movies of 2025. So this is a quick note. I just finished editing the podcast. Unfortunately, something went wrong with my recording. I don't know how, but I think it used my phone mic to record it instead of my external mic. So the audio might sound a little iffy for a bit of it. I really tried to enhance it with software, but it still doesn't sound great in my opinion. Unfortunately I just didn't really have enough time to re-record it, and this is like one of the longer podcasts I think I've ever recorded, and it came out pretty well, so I didn't really want to trash it. It's still like you can still make out what I'm saying. It just doesn't sound as great as some of my other episodes. So just kind of forgive the technical difficulties there. I apologize about that, but should be better next time. So thanks and enjoy the rest of the episode. Don't worry, the top 10 best movies is coming, but I just wanted to build up to that a little bit. Also, wanted to talk about Hoppers before it gets too late, so we're gonna do this first. Anyway, starting off with Hoppers, I love Pixar, but I think they've been having a bit of a disappointing few years, particularly with original films. The only films I've really liked a lot that they've made this decade, 2020 and beyond, are Elemental and Inside Out 2. One of them is original, one of them is a sequel. I know I'd say I'm in the minority on Elemental. I think most people are just kind of fine on it. Didn't get great reviews, but I thought it was a really touching film. Inside Out 2 is great also. I think Inside Out 1 and 2 are like some of Pixar's stronger films in a while. But most of the other films they made recently are enjoyable, but nothing special, if I'm being honest, which for Pixar of all studios is saying a lot. I mean, we're talking about a studio that is known for making some of the best animated films of all time, and some of them are even in my top 10, best animated films ever. And some of them are some of my favorite films, period, like Monsters Inc. But now we have Hoppers, which is from the creator of the show We Bare Bears, and it was on Cartoon Network. I watched it a lot as a kid, and I really enjoyed it when it was on TV. So, with that being said, I had a lot of hope that this film would be good because I just really like that show, and you could tell that the vibe in the trailers was, kind of similar to that show. But I have to say, I didn't like the trailers that they put out for this movie. I think it looked a lot like a generic kids movie, not so much like a great movie from Pixar. And I think there's a difference. Like if the same trailer came out and it was for like a DreamWorks movie, I'd be like, okay, that looks fun. That looks pretty good. But when it's from Pixar, you expect a little more out of it, out of the trailers at least. And I don't think the trailers looked very good. When I saw them, I was like, it doesn't look great. Every time someone around me saw them, they were like, it doesn't look great. And I think it just kind of set expectations kind of low, which was kind of unfortunate because, as I said, I thought this movie could have been good because I really like We Bare Bears. I like the people who are involved with this film. It could have been good. Um, but anyway, though, the movie is about a girl who puts her brain into a robotic beaver in hopes of saving some animals and kind of saving the environment. And I just think whoever was in charge of the marketing didn't do a good job of selling that, in my opinion. Especially after seeing the movie, I think there's a lot they could have done with the marketing to sell it better. Um, but with that being said, also, I think that there's a lot I'm glad they didn't totally spoil. I think the trailers did give away a little too much. Like, there's some stuff with some other animals, kind of like a bunch of king, queen animals. And I wish the movie didn't show that in the trailers. I think there's some stuff that, like, they definitely could have hidden a little more if they were going to do that because the movie has a lot of big twists and, reveals in everything in the plot. And I wish they did a little more, to really hide that. But in any case, reviews came out for the film. They were actually very positive, which made me, kind of excited again, made me want to watch it. Some filmmakers I admire said it was very funny and heartfelt. And now having seen the movie twice, in fact, I do think it's really good. And very funny would be an understatement as far as my comedic taste goes. This movie had me dying of laughter on so many occasions because of how ridiculous and insane things get, especially in the second half of this movie. It's just wild. Like, I'm not gonna I don't want to go into a ton of detail here because you just have to see it to believe it. But that second half, especially, just goes off the wall berserk and is so unpredictable. I couldn't believe what I was watching half the time. And, both times I watched it, I saw it twice. I was literally like I was just hysterical, like just laughing so hard. I think it's hilarious. And none of this would work if the characters weren't charming, which they are, if there wasn't heart, which there is, and if the movie didn't have a strong story, which it does. The movie is super entertaining, but it takes its time to, properly set the stage and make you care about what's going on before all this craziness goes down. Because if you just have and I think this goes for every movie. If you just have all this craziness on screen, it becomes kind of numbing if you don't care. But in this movie, you do care. So not only is it insane, it's actually, better because you're like actually invested in what's happening. So the craziness actually has some like, it has a little bit more going for it because you're actually like caring about what's going on. It's not just noise on screen. Um, and I think that's one of its greatest strengths, actually, is just how well it balances this tone it's going for. Because the movie actually really has a lot of crazy stuff going on tonally. Like, it goes from being just so silly and like lighthearted to like very dark at times, but not in like a way that's dark. Like, it's not like thematically dark, so to speak, but it's just like the amount of violence and stuff that happens in this movie and like just death and stuff, like, it's a lot. Maybe a little similar to, like, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish in that way. I mean, not saying it's the same type of movie, but I'm saying the level of darkness is kind of equivalent to that, I would say, like, if you thought your kids couldn't handle that movie, then this might be a little bit of a stretch, but, if they thought that was fine, I think this is good for them too. But it's a crazy movie, and this isn't Pixar's deepest or most thought-provoking film, but it's very sweet and has a good message at the core of it all, and I liked what it has to say. I think it's a good movie about uniting everyone, in this time of just kinda like, we're all divided, the whole world just kinda like no one can agree on anything, and I think this movie is kinda like, if we all really stick together and really try to make it through this, like, maybe we can actually get somewhere. There were some rumors going around that the movie had to tone down its environmentalist message. The filmmakers said they didn't have to, and I really honestly, I believe them because this movie does have a very strong message in that way, and I don't feel like the movie really cut corners to get there. Like, I mean, I could understand the argument that the message of the movie, maybe it's a little softer, but I think, like, when you really look back on the movie, especially after seeing it a second time, I'm like, this is very clearly the movie's message, like, it's set out to say the entire time. Like, it's not like this message just came out of left field. Like, it has a very clear thing it's going for and trying to say and what it's really trying to get at for anyone watching, and I think it's successful in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I think this is easily Pixar's best original film in many years, maybe their funniest film ever. And of course, the animation is excellent. It's a refreshing stylistic change for Pixar that works super well here. Not very different from like things they've done in the past, but the looks are a little different. Like the characters just don't, they look a little more like the We Bear Bear characters. Like they have a little more of that design to them. It doesn't feel like traditional Pixar animation, which is nice. And I think we're gonna see a little more in, Pixar style changing in the next couple of years. I think they have a movie, called Gato, which that's supposed to have more of like a watercolor paint look, I believe. Toy Story 5 also looks like it's gonna have a couple sequences that has a different art style. So it's interesting to see Pixar doing that. Um, but one detail I actually really liked in the animation also is that the humans see the animals differently from other animals. So the facial features and eyes in particular change for the animals, when humans are looking at them versus when the animals are talking to other animals. I thought that was an interesting touch. It made some scenes more funny and also made some scenes more emotional, and I thought that was a really strong choice. One of the bigger standouts in the movie to me. As for issues I have with the movie, it's mainly that there are a few too many flashbacks to things that we already saw in other parts of the movie. There are a few plot holes I noticed that probably should have either been addressed or made more clearly. Some of it was a little better on a second watch, and I kind of pieced together, but but there's still some things where I was like, you probably should have just addressed that really quick so the audience isn't that confused. And there was something at the very end also regarding a graduation where I was like how long ago was this? Like, does this even does this make sense in a timeline? Like, I don't know. It just didn't really add up to me. Um, and the main character, Mabel, I think could have used a little more development with some supporting characters, mainly the humans. Like, there are a couple of human side characters who really just feel like they're there to serve the plot, not so much like to be characters. And I would have liked maybe a little more from them. But most of these things are like more nitpicky, and there's not much that bothered me in the film in any way. It's really just that it's not an exceptional film in my eyes. Like, it's not Monsters Inc., it's not Finding Nemo, it's not Toy Story. I don't even think it's like A Wild Robot, which is from DreamWorks. I don't think it's like up there for me, but it's just a really good movie. Um, and I just think it's a really solid film nonetheless. Pixar needs more movies like this, and I'm so glad they have a new original that's unanimously praised and making a decent amount of money too. Toy Story 5 looks really solid, but I'll always have a soft spot for a good original movie, especially when it's coming from Pixar. So I highly recommend checking the film out. I think both kids and adults will have a great time with it, and I'm going to rate Hoppers a B plus. All right, and next up are the top 5 worst movies of 2025. But before I get to that, I would just like to take a moment to kind of talk about some dishonorable mentions here. We have a few of them that I would just say, they're very, very bad, but not quite the worst of the year. One of them is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I thought the first film was very bad. Somehow, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is even worse in almost every way. But it is a very funny movie. I mean, I think the first one, not really a guilty pleasure. The second one is. And I just it's one of the most incompetent movies of the year, but it's so entertaining because of that and has so many things that just made me laugh out loud. So it's entertaining. Very bad movie though. Up next is Smurfs. I just don't think they're ever gonna make a good Smurfs movie, to be honest. I mean, the live action ones, not very good. You had an animated one from Sony that came out quite a few years ago now, but that wasn't very good either. That was better than the live action movies. And now we have this new one from Paramount with Rihanna as Smurfette, and you had some other cast members. That's like the big notable one. Um, Very bad movie. Like, just a very bad family movie that has all the terrible jokes you can imagine. It's not funny, it's not charming, it's not sweet. It has some musical numbers which are okay, I guess, but it really felt like everyone was phoning it in. I didn't smile once watching it. It's pretty bad. Um, Definitely do not watch Smurfs. Not even for kids. Another one is Sneaks. This is an animated film about talking sneakers, and I feel like I don't really need to say much else. It's just like imagine Toy Story, but with sneakers. Yeah, it's terrible. Up next is Love Hurts. This is a movie I was really excited for because of the people involved in it. I think it had so much potential to be great, and it really just fell off in every sense of the word. Like, I cannot believe how much went wrong with this movie. It should have been a smash hit. It should have been funny. It should have been it's kind of like an action rom-com. And it could have been really good, but the writing is terrible. The characters don't really work. It's not even entertaining. It's a very short movie. It may only be like an hour 20 minutes or so, but it doesn't even work. It just feels like just like they threw together a script without putting much effort into it and then just greenlit it without, actually doing any rewrites or putting much consideration. Like, it just really felt like a thrown together movie, and I just really think it failed. But the last dishonorable mention here is Flight Risk. This is a movie from Mel Gibson, of all people, who has made great films in the past, but this is kind of like his B movie adventure with Mark Wahlberg in a plane, and it's terrible. Like, the writing is awful. I think it was even on the Blacklist, which is known to be a place with great script. So I don't know what happened, if they used AI to fix up the script or if the script was just always this bad. I don't know what happened, but Flight Risk is terrible. The only thing that made it even watchable for me is the fact that I saw it in 4DX. So that at least made it a little more entertaining. But if I saw this on TV, I probably would have fell asleep. Like it's terrible. Um really, really bad. But anyway, enough of those. Let's get on to our top five. So, starting off at five and going down to one, we're getting from better to worse. Of course, this is the top five worst, so they're all bad. But number five is Ella McKay, one of the most fascinating bad movies I've seen in a while. It's made by James L. Brooks, who is heavily involved with The Simpsons, which is my favorite show ever. And you have this great cast like Emma Mackey, Jamie Lee Curtis, Woody Harrelson, Ayo Edebretti, Rebecca Hall, Albert Brooks, like all these really talented people. And the script is just so bad. The direction is bad. It feels like this movie made by aliens who don't know how people talk. And for that reason, it just feels really awkward. Like, I think one example I always give for this movie is like in one of the opening scenes, the main character, Ella, is trying to tell her little brother about trauma. But instead of like telling a child about trauma or something, I think that was the word. It was like, instead of describing it though in a way where a child can understand it, like she literally just reads the dictionary definition of trauma. And I was like, this movie just doesn't understand human interaction at all. I just don't know. I don't know, it was so weird, like, I felt bad for it, like, it was almost like a movie you pitied throughout the whole thing because 'cause you're just like, "How do you think this is funny? Like, how do you think this is a good idea?" And the plot itself is like, I mean, the trailer doesn't give away the story of it, but it's so weird, like, the whole movie is, like, about I don't even wanna say it, like, I don't think I'm gonna say it here, it's almost like you have to watch it for yourself, but I'm just like, "What were you thinking with this movie? Like, what was going on in that writing room?" I don't know what they were doing. It's so bad. It's so bad. Definitely one it's a weird comedy also. It's not like offensive comedy. It's just so unfunny. It's like painfully unfunny. Um Yeah, it's really bad. But up next, number 4 is Borderline, a movie that is so frustrating to watch on every level. Characters make the worst possible choices at every turn, and you could predict exactly what's gonna happen before it happens, which makes those dumb decisions feel even dumber, when you look back on them, you're like, I how did I watching this movie know that was gonna happen before you as a character did? And it just makes the whole thing so frustrating to watch. I like Samara Weaving and I like Ray Nicholson, but they deserve so much better than this. And I feel like I burned this movie from my memory because I only watched it a few months ago and I barely even remember parts of it. So I think that kind of says all you need to know about this movie and its staying power. I don't even really have much more to say about it because it's really just that forgettable, and at the same time, I just know I hated it. It's one of those movies also where, like, I kept forgetting I even watched it until I, like, looked back at my list of, like, all the movies I watched last year and was like, "Oh, yeah, Borderline. Yeah, I didn't like that one." Um, so that was bad. And number 3 is Anniversary, maybe the single most infuriating movie of 2025, at least in my opinion. But what Anniversary frustratingly does is it teases these vaguely interesting ideas and does practically nothing with them. And it makes it so frustrating to watch because the characters aren't likable, the story gets frustrating, not even in an intentional way. And I kept sitting there waiting for the movie to actually say something worthwhile so I get the point of it, but it never did. And the whole movie just felt like one of those like fake movie trailer skits on SNL where it looks intentionally bad. That's how it came across to me. And I think it wastes a great cast, wastes a potentially interesting idea, and it says nothing of value that I just would have wanted to know otherwise. Like, the movie just doesn't have much to say, and I think that's very frustrating because when you're watching this film and you're like, "Why did you make this movie?" It doesn't even feel like the movie knows that answer. It feels like it's just kinda making stuff up as it goes along. It doesn't really feel like it has a it feels like it just kinda treads like a thin line of like it doesn't want to offend anyone, but it also doesn't really want to say anything. It's just kind of like we're making a political movie, but we don't really know much about politics, so we're kind of just trying to figure out what we're doing. I don't know. The whole movie felt like just, if you're going to do a political movie, at least make it political. Like, this was like, yeah, God, it was really bad because it's like, it would be like if I made a movie about politics, which I should not do because I'm just not interested in it and it wouldn't be good. That's what it probably felt like to me. And I don't know. This movie actually has decent reviews, so what do I know? But it really didn't work for me and it wasn't on my wavelength. So I just really didn't like it personally. But number two is Happy Gilmore 2. It's one of those movies that you'll either know you enjoy or hate in the first 5 minutes alone. And I kid you not, I almost turned it off a few minutes in because the film does something so insulting and cruel that it soured the rest of the movie for me and never recovered from it. It's such a bad choice. And I don't even want to say what it is, but it's something so impactful to people who really like the first movie. If you like the first movie, it's something that, just puts a bad taste in your mouth. And it does something to the character for the whole movie that I thought was like just the wrong choice. And it's not the right thing to do for this type of movie. Like, if this was a drama, maybe these choices would have worked. And I think you could have done this choice even in so many other different ways that would have been less offensive. But the way it's handled is tone deaf. It doesn't work at all. And I like the first Happy Gilmore, but this movie just takes itself way too seriously at times. And when it doesn't, it's awful humor that I hated watching. It's also a nonstop cameo fest with people that don't really need to be in this movie. You're like, why is this actor here? What are they doing? And just kind of seemingly endless amount of pointless references to the original film that like weren't necessary at all. Like, it almost feels like they thought it was funny to do it, but they just kept taking it further with like, oh, this character's related to that guy from the original. This character's related to that guy from the original. Like, isn't that funny? And I'm like, this movie just isn't clever. Like, this isn't even clever. This is just annoying me. I'm like, please just stop. Please just tell me a good story. And I was already frustrated. Like, this movie already put me in a bad mood with what it did early on, and it just kept doing things that made me even more upset. And I really don't know what they were thinking with this movie. I don't know how, like, Adam Sandler could have possibly heard the ideas to this movie and said, "Yeah, that seems like a good one. Like, let's do that." Because I was watching this movie and literally I was really this close to turning it off. Like, you can't see my fingers. I'm like, it's the tiniest, like, not even a centimeter. Like, I was really close to turning it off, and I never do that. Almost never do that with a movie. It's so, so bad. I really didn't like it at all. But my number one worst movie of 2025 is, in fact, War of the Worlds. This is objectively the worst movie of the year, but also one of the biggest guilty pleasures, in my opinion. It's a Screen Life movie, so it takes place entirely on, or almost entirely, on computer screens, phones, laptops. It takes place on a screen. And speaking of screen, there's a ton of awful green screen. Like, there's never a point where someone's actually talking in a room on Zoom. Like, it's just, like, very clear they're just talking with a green screen in the background, and they just kind of put some background place in there, and it doesn't look convincing at all. The film stars Ice Cube, and he clearly filmed his scenes. Actually, this isn't even clear. Like, this is a fact. He filmed his scenes without any other actors or references, so he's reacting to basically nothing. Like, the whole time, he's just like, every time he reacts to something, it's like, he has his face on him, and it's like, you're not even reacting to anything. You're just reacting to a blank screen, and it's very obvious because he looks like he has no idea what he's even reacting to half the time. Like, sometimes he's reacting too much, and sometimes he's not reacting enough to what happened. It's such a weird movie, and there's also countless Amazon product placement, which is supposedly not intentional, but I have a very hard time believing that, especially when the movie is literally streaming on Amazon Prime Video and has Amazon be a major plot point in the third act. Very strange choices, but the movie is hilarious to watch, especially with a group. But it's also terribly made, has awful writing, and is frankly kind of boring too. Like, this movie, I think it was, what, an hour and a half, maybe an hour 40? It felt like it was 2.5 hours. I was sitting there like, will this movie ever end? Like, I really hate saying that because I know, and this is why, like, people always say, like, should you make a top, worst movies list? Like, people really put a lot of effort into these movies, and I'm like, they do, and I think we should definitely shout out the good ones. We should try to shout out more good ones than bad ones. But I think the bad ones still deserve to be talked about because, people put their time into them, and I think also, like, they're memorable for that, and I think we have to address both the good and the bad. I try to watch bad movies every year because I just wanna learn lessons on what not to do if I ever make a movie, and that's something I appreciate, and I think, look, I have nothing against these movies personally, like, I don't really hold a grudge with them, but I think it's just fun to talk about them, and, to each their own. If you think that's cool, then great. If you don't like that, then I totally get it, but even War of the Worlds, like, it's not a movie I ever wanna watch again, but I think the memories of watching it are very special to me and will stay with me forever, so, it has that going for it, and all these movies, I'm gonna remember watching them and being very frustrated with them, but that's the fun of movies, I guess, and yeah, very soon, I'll get on to my top 10 movies of 2025 as well, so stay tuned. And that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve this show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.